Hello, my name is Remfry Dedman and welcome to the Kscope podcast. On this episode, I am delighted to be speaking to the two musicians behind Prince of Failure, a new project spearheaded by Daniel Tompkins, who I'm sure you'll be familiar with as vocalist of TesseracT, Sky Harbor, White Moth Black Butterfly, amongst many others, and Paul Ortiz, most commonly known to the world at large as Chimp Spanner. Daniel and Paul have worked together a few times in the past, but Prince of Failure is perhaps the pair's most personal collaboration. The material that makes up their self-titled debut album was written over several years and focuses on neurodiversity and the psychological weight of feeling disconnected from the expectations of society. And I think you can tell from this chat just how much working together on this music has meant to both of them. So without any further ado, I'll pass you over to my chat with Daniel Tompkins and Paul Ortiz on Prince of Failure.
Some days I can't think straight when the weight of the world is pushing back at me. I look up and see the whole sky spinning. You say it's a price that you must pay. I need you to put your arms around me. Close your eyes and feel the earth is spinning. Some days I can't see straight when the heat of the sun is bearing down on me. I look back and see the world is splitting. You say you gotta fight for every day. I need you to put your hands on me and pull me up into a new beginning. We fell from the stars to earth, lucky that the forest broke the fall.
You've collaborated multiple times over the years on a few different projects, so I'd like to start by digging into your relationship a little and asking how you first met.
Oh, that was the first time we met was in 2009, I think, when TesseracT released our first album. Well, we started to tour for the first time, preparing to release in 2010. And 2009 was a period where we did a tour with Periphery and Chimp Spanner, Monuments. There was something happened around that time where we toured together, essentially, didn't we?
I think it was the basic 5th birthday party. So you guys, I think, and Monuments played as a part of that. I wasn't on the tour with you for Periphery, but we definitely played the same show at the basic birthday party. And that was the very first time I met you in person.
Do you know what? The first time I remember meeting you was actually during a radio interview with Maz Star.
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I knew about you for ages. Because I got into Chimp Spanner through, I think it was Simon Poulton from First Signs of Frost.
Yeah.
He told me about you because you had done some work, or you were on the radar to actually potentially mix the First Signs of Frost record at one point.
We had gone to school together. And we played very briefly in a cover band called Vest.
Oh, that's right.
And that was how I got to know Simon. And then obviously once that connection made through to you, it was like, small world.
Yeah. And then obviously I was kind of a fan of your work, and then I left First Signs of Frost, joined TesseracT, and then we kind of like crossed paths at that point, and I'd got this bit of background knowledge on you, but I'd never met you until that point. But I felt like I knew you, weirdly.
Yeah.
We were part of the same scene. There was a lot going on. There was a lot of buzz.
Yeah, and I think we'd sort of we'd had passing conversations about it'd be really cool to work together because obviously big fan of Dan's vocals and his voice and everything, and you were obviously sort of into what I was doing musically, and I think for a long time it was just wouldn't that be cool to do?
That'd be cool, wouldn't it? I actually remember in 2010 when TesseracT released the album One, I went on holiday with Emma and my now wife, and we were in Mexico, and I remember sat on the beach listening to a load of Paul's music, and I started to speak to him, and you sent me a folder of unheard demos of things that you were working on, and I would listen to Paul's work, and I was really I love the stuff that he's done forever. Like Chimp Spanner's amazing, technical metal prog, whatever you want to call it. I love that stuff, but I was really taken aback with your synth work and all those soundscapey things that you would do, and that's actually what drew me emotionally towards your work. actually. And I think emotion is a big thing, because it does link into why we're doing this at the moment with Prince of Failure. Like, the way that I personally react to music and react to music still today is very deep and very emotive and cathartic and all these wonderful things. And I was actually experiencing that when we would listen to Paul's music all those years ago. And that was when we first started having these ideas of, cool, you're awesome, I'd love to work with you one day. And you were like, yeah, man, it'd be great to do some stuff. And it never happened until 6 years later.
It was about that, yeah.
I think you really hit on something there, Dan. I've enjoyed a lot of Paul's work over the years, but the real emotional quality comes through in the synth work. I think a good example of that from this record would be a song like Moonlight.
I was found a little wasted on jealousy.
But I think the synth work is the thing that drew me into the Chimp Spanner universe as well, so I completely agree with that.
Yeah, and I've always been a big fan of, like, I try as much as possible to, they're not just kind of like songs for song's sake. A lot of them are more like soundscapey, almost like they could be a soundtrack to something.
Yeah.
Or there'll be, like, there was a couple of tracks on the album, not to sort of jump too far ahead, but there were things that really sort of just started as like an image or an aesthetic or something, and that then informed, like, well, okay, the instruments and the soundscaping and everything should make you feel like you're in the place that the song is set. And I've always sort of tried to do that with my stuff, is that it could be a soundtrack to something.
So you both wanted to collaborate with one another, but just because people want to collaborate with each other doesn't necessarily mean that it's always going to work. But there must be something that has drawn you two together. What do you think draws you to one another creatively?
Looks.
Well, I'll tell you what. Not to, obviously, I don't want to answer for Dan. A thing for me is I am not very good at working with people, and I think there's a certain personality type that I definitely gel more with when it comes to creative things. I think both Dan and I are quite introspective people, and yeah, as someone that's always been a bit of a control freak and like just not wanting to let anyone else into the process, I'd probably say really that Dan's the only person that I've managed to do it successfully with. And I think it is just because we share a lot of the same sort of, relationship to music and approaches to it and stuff. But yeah, like I said, I don't want to answer for
No,
for
that's
Dan.
exactly it. Same age as well. We share a lot of history within the world of music that we live in. And, he's a nice guy. He's a nice guy.
Same references, perhaps.
Oh yeah, we both grew up listening to nu metal. We share a love
Yeah.
for all that stuff.
But I mean, even like on, we'll sort of sometimes send each other absolute junk on Instagram.
Right.
But we'll also say, if we see something like vibey that like really resonates with us, like we send it to each other. But we're very much into that same sort of aesthetic, like, dystopian stuff, a little bit cyberpunky things. And so I think our expanded influences outside of music, gaming, sci-fi, all that stuff, I think it's quite similar as well.
When you find that natural connection with somebody in the world of music, I don't personally think that should be taken lightly at all, because finding someone who's on the same wavelength as you, it can be incredibly rare. And it's not just about being on the same musical wavelength, it's about being on the same wavelength from a personality perspective as well. Because if you can't, be friends and explore and explore how each other work and have those kind of conversations together, which are incredibly important for actually writing music in the first place. I think that's probably one of the things that's enabled us to work together so closely on music, because as Paul said, having been a little bit of a control freak myself when it comes to, you know, my own work, my own body of work, my own voice and how I want it to be presented, you can close the door off very quickly to other people, and you don't really understand. You can lose sight of the benefit of collaboration. And I think we slowly started to open that door and realised how important it was.
Yeah.
With TesseracT, when we write concepts, it is very much a joint process, and we have to somehow meet in the middle and compromise on the concepts that we're writing about, even though I might spearhead it from time to time, or Amos might. But actually working with Paul, I'm working with somebody that's given me complete free rein to actually express what I'm thinking and feeling and bring it to him, bring it to the table, and it not being diluted or reshaped into something that's away from the original idea, which sometimes happens with TesseracT, because it's a you know, it's a community of musicians that are trying to grow a project, rather than just me and Paul like riffing on like what's happening, you know.
And also as well, I think, you know, because I respect Dan's work so much and his approach to music and stuff, I'm very sort of hands off with the way you interpret the music. So it's very, very rare that I really think we've ever sort of listened to what each other have done and been like, I'm not really feeling that. Even if I write something in isolation and then I send it across to Dan, it's almost like you're already where I'm thinking it should be in my head. And before I've even had a chance to say, maybe you should do this, you've already done it.
Yeah, that is exciting.
So yes,
I think we're also willing to allow those opinions to be there and to be received in the right way. Yeah. You know, I value your opinion, therefore I'm more happy to allow it than someone that I don't value. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, I appreciate your level of insight into music, and there are some times where I might write a vocal line and there might be just a little note choice that's just not quite what it should be, or doesn't gel properly with the music, and I might not hear it. And I'm starting to learn that Paul's got a great ear for that stuff. Once upon a time there would have been a part of me that's like, no, I'm right, that feels right, it's right. But actually no, I'm able to collaborate a lot easier now, and it's through that process of working with the likes of Paul that I've grown as an artist, actually.
So how did the Prince of Failure project itself come to be? Because you worked on things previously in the past, and there must have been a point where it became apparent that this was something different. Timing
is massive with that. Yeah, I mean, the core idea behind all of this is exploring neurodiversity, because I recently got diagnosed with attentive and inattentive ADHD. So I'm a dual type neurodivergent person, and I never really understood what any of that was until the last 4 or 5 years, because I've got close people in my life that have recently been diagnosed with ADHD and, on the other side of the spectrum, autism. And so as a way of trying to better understand those people, I started to look at myself, and I started to understand more and more that I have been living out of sync with the world and the people in it, and being misunderstood. And I'm starting to realise that I've had a lot of difficulty ever since being a child in many, many different areas. And it's only through that process of deep diving that I've managed to actually get myself looked at and seek advice and go through a specialist to realise that I've actually got ADHD. And it's made me realise that pretty much every song and every album that I've written has got a bit of that in it. It's a big question mark. It's about soul searching, understanding the feelings of being misunderstood, the feelings of just feeling out of sync with everything in relationships, like the struggle of like meeting new people and presenting as something that I'm not, and masking. And masking has been a massively huge thing for me over the years. And as you know, I'm 42 years old now, and I'm only just starting to understand myself on that level. So imagine like living your life thinking that you're just normal, for the want of a better word, or a typical person, and then realising actually you're not typical, and the things you've been dealing with are high pressurised, heightened anxieties and depression that have been based on the back of this condition that I've had for a very long time. And so all of these things, like, I used to be a police officer, and like, you know, I dealt with a lot of serious things. I've seen a lot of things that a typical person wouldn't ever see, wouldn't ever deal with. And the trauma of that exacerbates this condition that I've already got. And so that depression that might be born from that, or that anxiety that comes from that, is so heightened. And I've just grown up thinking that that's just the way of life. That's just something you got to deal with. You know, there's no explanation for it. Everyone feels like this. Everyone experiences this. And to a degree, yes, people do experience anxiety or feeling low, or they get upset because of an argument, or they might, you know, there are pressures in life all around us. But I'm starting to realise that as a neurodivergent person, the things that I experience can often be several times more triggering and more intense than a typical person.
Heightened in some sense.
Heightened is the word, yeah. And there are benefits to it. I would say I'm only just coming around to the realisation that they probably are benefits. But that's what the Prince of Failure represents. He is a manifestation of this other self. You know, it's almost like being bipolar to a degree. It's like living with two different versions of yourself. The version of yourself that just wants routine, that wants safety, that wants to be, you know, just in a corner away from the pressure of life. And you've got this other version of yourself that's like, that forces you into uncomfortable situations and causes chaos and causes trouble. It's a serious trouble causer. And then it's like you're constantly swinging, the pendulum swings one day to the other in terms of attitude and well-being. And it can be super heightened and wow, amazing, I'm having such a great day, I'm being productive. And the next day I can be, God, I can't deal with this is too much, I'm overwhelmed. And then you get dysfunctional behaviour where you sit in front of a computer and you're just so overwhelmed with the voices inside your head that you just can't function at all. But then there are days and weeks where I can hyper-focus so intensely, I get so much work done, more work than I could have done in a month. I can sit down and do it in half a week. But then that causes incredible amounts of burnout and fatigue because of that incredible hyperfocus. It's either all or nothing. I've always said that. I feel like I'm all or nothing. I'm hot or cold. I wouldn't have been able to have done half the things in my life without it. The next single that comes out, Jaded Mantra, is a marriage and a funeral all in one. It's a recognition of this other self and how important it actually is. And also hoping that it's that this part of me that can't deal with it will die, and I can just exist knowing that this thing is there. I've given it a name. It's the Prince of Failure.
A taste of you right inside my mouth, and it bleeds and drains. I swallow your tea. Only you could be undisputed, and all day when I dream, I long for you. Only you, with only me. A tainted mind, searching for an open door. This reckless life and jaded corpse, let them fall. My soul is yours. Only you. I'm the Prince of Fire. I'm the Prince of Failure.
It might be the Prince of Failure, but without it, there wouldn't have been so much drive and success in my life. So it's a very complicated thing. But
Yeah.
in a nutshell, that's what it represents.
Without it, you wouldn't be who you are as well. I mean,
Right.
it is a part of you. It's what makes you, isn't it? All of these things, whether it be ADHD or autism or whatever, these are all things that make up part of who we are. I mean, so I suffer from depression, and
Right.
depression is absolutely debilitating at times. But if I didn't have depression, I wouldn't be the person that I am. I don't think I'd have the sensitivities that I have. And there's been a lot of research about creativity and neurodiversity and so on and so forth, but perhaps you wouldn't have some of the creativity that you have without some of those traits that you've newly discovered that you have.
100%. I'm starting to realise that music, the reason I was so attracted to music was dual functional. I would like to say I do think that neurodivergent people seek out neurodivergent people, and are quite often deep thinkers. If I have a surface level conversation with anybody, I'll very quickly turn off because it's not fulfilling me. It's not deep enough. I'm not getting something rich out of the interaction.
Yeah.
But initially it's hard to get into that interaction and to get to that level. Ultimately, that's what I'm seeking for. I'm seeking understanding, deep levels of understanding. But getting to that point is incredibly hard. So I think deep thinkers seek out deep thinkers, and a lot of neurodivergent people are deep thinkers.
Yeah.
I think our sort of journeys are probably a little bit different in the sense that I've not spoken to anybody. I remember us having a period of time, maybe last year, I sort of found myself in a position where I was living on my own for the first time, like fully on my own, and experiencing the pressures of everything that you were expected to be able to do kind of then came at odds with the fact that I think for most of my life I've been allowed and encouraged to hyper-focus on the things that I love because I spent a lot of time living at home. I was self-employed for a long time, so my world was whatever I wanted it to be. And now I've kind of come in a clash with like, okay, I can't go to the thing that makes me happy a lot. And I don't know if it comes from anything that necessarily needs to be diagnosed, but I know there's a lot of kind of crossover with the things that, you know, that Dan and myself experience in terms of those big pendulum swings of mood and productivity. And as you say, Dan, you know, I think anyone that is creative and can work on music probably knows in themselves that there's something a little bit not normal about being able to listen to 2 bars of music for 6 hours and finesse it. Like, it's not normal.
100%.
Yeah.
But then, you know, I think to sort of come into that place where, as you say, I can hyper focus, I can have a really productive 4 or 5 days, and then the next 3, 4, 5 weeks after that, the clothes are building up in the house, and there's a message that I was supposed to reply to 3 months ago that I think about every morning. I haven't replied to that person yet.
It's overwhelming.
And then you just get thinking, is like, is this just me being rubbish? Does everybody secretly feel the same way, but they're just better at getting over it than I am? And I think that's kind of, as I say, I'm at a bit of a different place from Dan in that I got as far as doing the initial screener, and it basically said, you know, based on your results, you should probably go talk to somebody. And then I found out that it either costs a lot of money or takes about 5 years to get seen. So I've just given up.
Right.
and I've sort of, you know, tried to do the usual things of, like, you know, go out for a run, take some vitamin D, take some magnesium or whatever. And it's like, that's kind of where I'm at with it. But to sort of like tie it back to, you know, to what you were saying about the project, and I think maybe the way it sort of works so well is that for whatever reason, I think we're both channeling a lot of our own introspection and insecurities and things that we struggle with into the music. And certainly for me, even though my music has always been instrumental, that's kind of been my voice for expressing something that I might be feeling that I don't have any other way to say, really. And I think that's kind of why it works so well with...
But that's powerful, though, and that's probably why we were drawn towards it. Music has been probably one of 2 things in my life which enables me to turn off the internal monologue. So imagine having several versions of yourself screaming at you, distracting you with things that are really important. Like Paul said, there's a pile of clothes over there. There's a message that you've not replied to for the 5th week, and you're being reminded of it. And there are other pressures. So multiple pressures and things being thrown at you. For me, that is a very audible thing. Like, I can hear it, and it's like being in a very busy room and hearing and not being able to hear your own voice speak. I was in the shower the other day and I had to shake myself out of it because what I was hearing in my head was louder than the sound of the water in the shower.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I had to like just take a step back and go and like shake myself from it. But when I listen to music, I can turn them all off. All those voices just disappear and I'm able to just listen and feel a sense of zen.
Man, just hearing you sort of articulate that, I was trying to explain something to my partner the other day, that sometimes when I get a little bit in my head, the only way I can describe it is it's like someone's playing with a soundboard and they won't stop. And it's such a difficult thing to explain to someone that I'll start thinking of something like a sentence or something stupid or annoying or a piece of music or something, and it's just loop, 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 loop. And I can't turn it off. And it's quite interesting hearing you sort of talk about actually hearing something that's as loud as the things that you actually are hearing with your ears. That's a crazy thing.
I just thought that was normal. I've had it since being a child. That's always been there.
So did you come into writing these songs with this intent in mind? Did the project start after the diagnosis or was it before the diagnosis?
No, it was well before.
Okay.
Well before. But the themes of some of the songs that we'd already written were just screaming this concept. And it just so happened to be a timing thing because, like I say, I learnt that people around me had been diagnosed. I looked at myself and it just happened to be around the time when we were kind of like finishing like the second half of the album. And then I looked back over the lyrics and started to look at this concept. And some of the songs, we had a song called Prince of Failure.
Yeah.
Even before this was a thing. We had a song called Dream Stealer. And it was all about, there was in a voice, there's that anxiety that just is pulling you away from that dream or pulling you away from your goals and disrupting you and dysregulating you or distracting you. And so that sense of failure, that sense of distraction, internally and externally from the world and the people around that are just in the way of you achieving your dreams, that was already a part of what we were writing about. And so it just kind of like went one step deeper when we actually thought about, hold on a minute, the Prince of Failure. That was a name to a song that we gave it 6 years ago. And it's just kind of like piecing the pieces together. And all of a sudden it's like, this is what I was writing about. Of course it is. I'm writing about, we write about music that's personal, about things that you deal with and experience. I'm starting to understand that there's a part of me that I never really understood. And then when I understood it, I'm like, that's what I was writing about for all these years and I never really knew it.
Don't fear me. What have you done? What did you sacrifice? 'Cause you are fading away. The setting sun is bleeding in your eyes. What have you done? What have you done? What did you sacrifice? 'Cause you are fading away. The setting sun is bleeding.
I think the cool thing as well is like, because obviously you'd mentioned that, Dan and I have worked on things before.
Yes.
And I'm sure you're aware that we had the album Ruins,
Yes.
which was kind of the first time that we'd collaborated on this type of music. And originally, this was kind of just going to be like a follow-up to that. It was like, well, that was good. Let's do that again. And certainly near the start, I know we had a few more sort of fun ideas. Well, and we kind of were coming at it from like, okay, we both love stuff from the 2000s. We both love our new metal. We like that kind of just simple, catchy stuff. Sometimes it's fun. It's whatever. But we never sort of really sat down and said, let's write a really serious album about neurodivergence. Like you say, it was in the background without Dan realising, I think. And the fact that the album has taken as long as it has, and we've both been on the personal journeys that we have, and, you know, certainly when I got stuck into writing Prince of Failure stuff, you know, properly, I'd just come off of the back of a very sort of big transitional point in my life, a bit of like emotional trauma and stuff. And so I think the journey of the album kind of naturally follows that arc that we've both taken. I think it gives the album a really nice flow, that it is actually telling the story of where we've been in our lives really for the last 6-7 years. But also as well, I mean, I think because both of us have spent the amount of time that we have in very technical genres, and there was definitely a period in my life where every song that I started, the overriding sort of concept was like, how messed up can I make this rhythm? And I feel like that was maybe something that was a bit more like, you know, there was a youthful energy to that. And as I've gotten older, I've sort of moved away from that. Okay, look, I'm not trying to impress anybody because I can't. There's people now that the first song they learn on guitar is like the best song I ever wrote. So that by the time they're my age, they have just left me in the dust completely. Yeah. But it's kind of naturally made me sort of want to shift more towards simplicity.
Creating big moments.
Yeah, and we've, you know, not to sort of like get too ahead of ourselves, but even in terms of what we want to do going forward with new material, we are very keen on that big, simple moments, just things that they're impactful, but they're not distracting and they're not, you know, overly complicated. And I remember having a moment at a festival I was at quite a few years back, and I was in my tent and I could just hear double kicks just going. I was like, I can't do it. Someone just give me a chorus, give me a hook, give me something. Like, I need to know where I am in the song. And that's no shade, by the way. Like, the amount of technicality and proficiency and stuff in music is just, it's just gone up and up and up. And I love a lot of technical music. Like, I'm a big tech death fan, which is like, I never thought I'd be into that stuff in my life, but, you know, I love that stuff. But certainly when you want to sort of have a bit more room for like emotional range and dealing with a range of themes and stuff, I think you need those big, simple, emotive moments and more contrast and more dynamics and stuff. And I think that's what we were trying to hold on to with this album, is just leave room for things to breathe, make things that are accessible on a first listen. We want people to feel familiar with a song the first time they've heard it, and bringing motifs back and everything. And that's kind of guided a lot of the writing on the album.
I'm really hoping that the concept resonates with a lot of people, and I think it will. Because I think we all have a lot of unmet potential, and a lot of us are relentless when it comes to self-scrutiny. And I think that's a good way of representing what the Prince is. You know, that Prince of Failure is that, you know, embodiment of internalised shame. Yeah. And often it's a silent struggle for a lot of people.
I mean, this kind of ties a little bit back towards, you know, mine and Dan's writing relationship. But at the point that we worked on Ruins, outside of my day job, I hadn't picked up a guitar and written a full metal song for probably 10 years.
Wow. Okay.
For very much the same reason, which is that it was that kind of like, can I still do this anymore? Am I good enough for people to still be interested in? And I actually did such a good job of telling myself that I don't need to worry about that because I actually don't miss it, that I just settled into just day job life, which obviously I'm very grateful for. It's nice having stability and stuff. But by the time Dan came to me with that idea of working with him on the Ruin stuff, there was that big part of me that was like, look, you've kind of run away from dealing with your own insecurities about your music for too long, but you do miss it. You have to do it. You have to keep doing it. And probably I'd say, you know, this album is like the third time really that Dan's sort of come along with an idea to do something, and it has sort of lifted me a little bit out of that hole of like, you know what, I could probably just comfortably never do this again, and I've written some good songs, I've had my bit and whatever, but it's nice to have somebody creative and sort of understanding and sympathetic to the things that I feel, to push me forward to keep doing that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Daniel, you said on socials that Prince of Failure started as a way of trying to understand myself, and obviously we've spoken quite a lot about, you know, specifically what that is today already, but could you tell me what you discovered about yourself through writing this record?
I have slowly, and I mean slowly, started to accept me for who I am. And that's probably the biggest breakthrough. And allow myself to exist without having to worry about other people's expectations, when naturally that is built and ingrained within me. Like I will want to people please. I will not want to come across negatively in a relationship or in a conversation, and I will always second guess what someone is thinking or read body language to such a degree that the slightest thing that looks off makes me very insecure and worry about what I might have done to somebody. And that's actually quite an upsetting thing to have to live with, because it makes you very self-conscious about yourself and how you speak and how you act. And coupled with the masking, which is, exactly that, trying to pretend to fit in or communicate with somebody in a way that isn't your natural way of communicating with somebody just to fit in. It's so mentally draining to the point where at the end of it, I could go out on a social event, and after an hour of speaking to people, I need to go home. I'm done. Like my brain is exhausted. So I'm starting to understand that that's okay. And actually, because I understand myself better, when I meet somebody for the first time, I can tell them about it, and I can say, hey, just so you know, this is how I operate. This is who I am. I might act a certain way. I might say a certain thing that might come across in a certain way, and it's not on purpose. And also, I have these anxieties. I might react this way to this. And if you can set the foundation right from the get-go, if you're developing a relationship with somebody, it makes me just breathe, just be able to breathe around somebody, knowing that I've got it off my chest and that they can accept me for who I am. It just takes so much pressure away. So actually, it is literally about me relaxing and saying it is okay to exist the way that you are. Just communicate better and be confident about that communication, and everything's going to be fine.